Going to the bathroom on the mountain is a whole other thing people don't talk about. I never really thought about that.
I'd rather.
I was
Until you needed to.
I didn't tell them about that part.
Yeah. To be honest, that's really was the hardest part.
I would rather summit than have to go to the bathroom.
True.
That's why dudes just do pee their suits.
That's what I did.
That's what I did. That's what I did.
I just pissed myself.
I was like, there's an opening in it? I didn't even
No,
know.
this is absorbent.
Sometimes we just catch Michael and he'd be like, you okay, dude?
It's like the kid in the pool look.
One of the most harrowing times was when I almost walked in on Jason while he was taking a shit in a porta potty. That was like, when people ask me about what was the scariest moment on shooting this movie.
What's the most memorable moment
That
you
was-
remember?
yeah.
Oh, Jason, for sure.
Somebody's in here. Somebody's in here. Somebody's in here.
I said no! I said no!
You hear chains hitting the ground, and the crampons coming off, and then the other thing going on, and then
Human beings simply aren't built to function at the cruising altitude of a 747. Our bodies will be literally dying.
It's gonna take all we got.
We're all getting down together, now let's go!
If anyone can make it, you can.
It's not your normal movie experience, but I think that's why we all signed up for it. The extraordinary thing was seeing how the production actually got up on the movie. We'd be at 10,000 feet in a base camp. We'd be sitting there having breakfast, and then we'd be called at random times to come up due to weather. Balthazar would be flying from one side of a mountain on a helicopter to another with Sal, our camera guy, and then 3 of us would have to go up and film a scene.
Which was fantastic. I mean, I started my film career in Scandinavia, and I have some experience of that way of doing things. And I'm sure Bolt would be very upset with me if I put him in any kind of bracket with Lars von Trier. But there is a sense of an orchestrated chaos that is just really thrilling to just go, okay, you just got to hold your nose and jump and see what happens.
they had watered down a fairly severe pitch, completely frozen the next day, and then we had us online down that whole thing, and there was a crank that was supposed to pull the camera up, and that crank broke. So then you hear over the loudspeaker, you know, guys, I'm sorry, the crank's not working. If you can just stay there for the next hour, we'll get you as soon as we can, okay? Everybody good? You want water?
That's not how, it doesn't say hour. They never say hour, hour and a half. They say, just 15 minutes.
No, but
It became hour and a half.
No, they did say hour, and it was actually like 3 hours. And then it becomes real. You're cold. Oh, and it started snowing. Literally right at that second, it started to snow.
Do you remember when the Italian guy lost his shit?
Lost it.
His shit.
And all of us had
We're
sat
shooting a
there
scene, we're going up there.
and kind of like dug our own little ice holes to wade in.
We're shoveling the, you know, because we're going up the Lotsie face, and we're climbing up there, and the guy's shoveling, there's one guy shoveling snow up into the fan, which then blows onto us. And it was, you know, it's a 15, 20, 30-minute take at times. Some of the takes were huge. This guy's got a shovel. I mean, huge. shovel. While he's getting a beer, more snow. And then he just fucking lost it.
Lost it.
I'm looking across the guy, I'm thinking,
No,
holy
Jason goes,
shit.
what's happening to that guy?
And the
He
guy's
thought he was
upping him with
having
a
an
shovel.
epileptic
Oh, he was. It was dangerous. This guy just completely fucking threw the bin at this dude, fucking kicked the fan, trying to put it over, losing it, runs up, comes back down, hurls abuse, picks up the shovel, starts swinging it. I'm just thinking, somebody's got to come in and get this guy.
It was
or
so
something.
nice to see somebody who wasn't.
I remember just thinking, I can relate.
Look at the beard. The minute you walked in the room, you knew this was going to be a serious film, you know? We weren't going to be shooting this in a studio.
The guy has 2 guns on his belt.
It's actually kind of true.
Like,
Sort of true, isn't it?
Let's put it that way. I had a black beard before we started. But I'm proud of my gray beard now. I didn't sugarcoat it at all. How difficult it was going to be. In a way, I didn't know it myself either, you know. I never made a movie on Everest before. But I wanted them to draw the characters from the elements. And less acting and more letting people into their own fears and defining the character that way.
He was really good at seeing the big picture and dealing with everybody individually in order to get ultimately what he needed, which he got, And I think it's a very real, as best as we could do, depiction of the fear and vulnerability one feels being in a precarious place.
John, let's go! Hurry up!
Rob, can you hear me? You've got to get moving.
You've got to come on down.
It's very up and down for me. It's never happened before, but I wanted out. We took turns being me in that situation throughout the shoot, where at times everybody didn't want to be there. We just pulled each other up the figurative mountain that way. Just saw it through. I'm really glad I did.
That's a part of the process, rejecting it and then accepting it. It also brought me and John closer, that moment of truth, that, okay, this is the reality of it. And it was a very honest moment.
I think what makes Balt really special is that he initially started off as an actor, and so he understands what goes on inside of the sort of semi-insanity in creating a character of any kind. His desire to tell this extraordinarily enormous story is coupled with his understanding of the intimacies of interacting with all of us and all of our weird idiosyncrasies, and actually using them, like Josh said, manipulating us in one way or another, is what makes, I think, the movie great. As a result, I think the people who were on the mountain, their spirit, I think, is hopefully in the movie. When you're climbing a mountain and you're at a high altitude, it really doesn't matter what physical shape you're in. It's really a question of genetics. Yeah. We joke that, Josh trained a ton, Jason trained a ton, and then John didn't train as much. Whenever we went to a high altitude, John was just like, this is fine. And we were all like, literally.
No, I'm not leaving you behind, Doug. Come on.
Got it right.
No, Doug, come on with me. I need 10 good minutes, Doug, come on.
We all trained. We all put ourselves out there because the way Balt sets it up is that you're going to be in some precarious situations. You don't want to get hurt, You want to be able to protect yourself, and you want to be used to that. And then you get up there, and there's a whole biological thing, like what Jake said. We went up to the memorial. We were supposed to hike up to base camp, too. And
well, I always wanted to go as high as possible.
Right.
That was just, like in any, you try to push the envelope, because if you don't, you will stand and shoot the whole movie in Kathmandu, I managed to convince, and it was a lot of convincing, by the way, to go up to the memorial, because I had scouted the memorial and I was just blown away by its beauty. You're up at 15,000, 16,000 feet there, and we have an evacuation plan, because people actually can die up there. If you get stuck there, and I could see how the crew started falling apart, starting evacuating people, and you're still, I still need, another frame, and the cameraman is getting, cross-eyed, and and it's getting out of focus, and it's just, the whole scene is just, it's falling apart. We managed to get the scene, and then we had planned to shoot another scene, and that is probably the worst piece of shit I've ever shot in my whole life,
I just remembered that.
I just said, I couldn't, the framings, everything was off. The actors were terrible, And I was just, and we realized afterwards that they were altitude sickness. They were just sick. People were sick.
It's true.
With drilling headache, people lost their focus, and you can't do anything. I ended up cutting that out of the movie because it was just unusable. And you realize when you're sitting in the editor room, wow, we must have been really fucked at that point.
There was an altitude simulation. We were all learning about hypothermia, hypoxia, those types of things, just to figure out how it felt. We would be brought in, in groups of 4 or 5 into this chamber. As it was raised, 5,000 by 5,000 feet, so it was 5,000, 10,000, 15,000. And as we started getting higher, Josh and I just decided we'd stay in while the other groups left. And
we ended up spending the night in the chamber.
But we were doing exercises and we were trying to do simple arithmetic, and I can't actually do simple arithmetic even at sea level, so I was like, I'm fine. We got out, we were laughing too. I remember all I remember is like a weird POV of me pointing at you, ha, and laughing, and you laughing at me. And then 15 minutes later, we were depressed.
We really were.
Yeah, we really were. We were sitting on the bus going back, like, are you okay? Like I don't know, are you okay?
And that lasted like 12 hours at least.
Like longer for me.
Longer, yeah.
Like 4 or 5 years. Still, it started before. Never mind. I don't think it was the chamber. But anyway, it was definitely.
No, but it was really like, without that experience, I don't think, even though we shot that shitty scene, that when we went to the memorial.
He's really hurt, you know.
No, I am. It was a shitty scene. I agree. I actually agree. Because I remember when it was happening, and then Bob said to me a couple of days later, he goes, "That scene sucks. Like, it's bad." And I was like, "I know." Like, I was so high during that scene, which I was actually, you know. When we were at the memorial, seeing everybody eventually go prostrate. I mean, everybody was lying down by the time we started taking helicopters out of there. So it's wild what it can do to you biologically.
I was absolutely blown away by the physical achievement of the film. I sat right in the back row of a huge IMAX in London, gripping my seat. I mean, that moment when the helicopter tips backwards, I thought I was going to be sick. I thought it was brilliant.
I feel like you did achieve what you set out to do in making this film, and I was just like, holy shit, he pulled it off. Not that I doubted him, but I was just like, he really pulled it off. Because it's got all that action, but at the core, it's got this story about all these individuals going through this hell.
This way, doggy, come on. Come on. There we go. Where are you?
Sometimes you're realizing what your plan is, because I don't come with a full plan, but you have it inside of you and you're kind of pulling it out. And in our conversation, you've said something, I feel so like an indie movie. It's a huge movie, but at the same time, there is a feeling. And I actually realized what my intentions were to make movie as intimate as an indie film, but as big as a blockbuster on the scale. And that's what I love about this story. It's not about a group of people walking up a mountain, be hit by a storm, and you know, some got home, some didn't. It is about humanity. Is it a mistake or not? Should you save the guy next to you? I mean, a lot of people are very critical about somebody not carrying someone down. It means both of them could die. And everyone is at their own responsibility. Yeah. You know, there's a bit of a different law up there. That was what I set out to do, and I certainly hope that people will experience, especially in an IMAX theater. It's been a fantastic journey.